Captain Sarah Chen floated through the cargo bay of her ship, the Wayfarer checking supply crates with practiced efficiency.
That heat
She had
signature
been
is
running
stabilizing
cargo between
faster than
Earth and the
projected.
outer colonies for
Confirmed.
5 years
The
now.
atmospheric density
It
is
was
lower
honest
than the
work,
initial survey
boring
suggested.
work, but it paid the bills. Her ship was old, patched together with spare parts and hope, but it was hers. "Sarah, you need to see this." The voice crackled through her headset. It was Marcus, her engineer and the only other crew member on this run. "Can it wait? I'm in the middle of inventory." "It really can't." She pushed off from the cargo crate and floated toward the engine room. The Wayfarer was a small ship, just 6 rooms total. Engine room, cargo bay, tiny kitchen, 2 sleeping pods and the cockpit. Everything else was stripped away to make room for more cargo space. Marcus was hanging upside down near the hull access panel when she arrived. His tools floated around him in a lazy circle. The panel was open, revealing the ship's outer hull, but something was attached to it that shouldn't be there. "What is that?" Sarah asked, moving closer. "I don't know," Marcus said quietly. "I was checking the hull sensors because we've been getting weird readings for the past week. Power drains, small ones. I thought maybe we had a short circuit or something. But then I found this." It was smooth, metallic, and covered in patterns that seemed to shift when she looked at them directly. Thin tendrils extended from it, buried deep into the Wayfarer's hull. Small lights pulsed across its surface in a rhythm that felt almost like breathing. "That's not human technology," Sarah said. "No, it's definitely not." "How long has it been there?" she asked. Marcus pulled up his datapad and ran some calculations. "Based on the power drain pattern, I'd say at least 3 months, maybe longer." The mining colonies near Saturn, that supply run to the research facility on Europa. Someone had attached this device to her ship and she hadn't noticed. "Can you remove it?" she asked. "Maybe, but Sarah, look at this." Marcus pointed to his scanner. "It's transmitting. Constantly. Some kind of signal I've never seen before. The frequency is way outside normal human communication ranges. But whoever they are, they know exactly where we are right now." He used a laser cutter to carefully separate the tendrils from the hull. It took almost an hour. The device didn't react, didn't change its pulsing rhythm. When the last tendril came free, Marcus caught it in a containment box lined with metal mesh. "What now?" he asked. Sarah stared at the device through the box's transparent lid. Someone had been tracking her ship for months. Someone with technology far beyond what humans possessed. The question was why? What was so special about a small cargo hauler running supplies between colonies? An idea formed in her mind. It was risky, maybe stupid, but it was better than just running away. "There's a probe launching from Jupiter Station tomorrow," she said slowly. "Automated survey mission to Mars, part of the terraforming project. They're sending it to check radiation levels in the canyons. If we attach this to the probe, they'll follow it instead. We buy ourselves time to figure out what's going on. If these things are hostile, at least there will be someone there who can fight back. Better than leading them to some undefended mining station." "When do we dock at Jupiter Station?" Sarah recorded everything, took hundreds of scans, but nothing made sense. The technology was completely alien. When they docked at Jupiter Station, Sarah told the dock master they needed to make some repairs. No one questioned it. The Wayfarer always needed repairs. While Marcus handled the official paperwork, Sarah made her way to the probe launch bay. The probe sat on its launch rail, a simple cylinder packed with sensors and just enough fuel to reach Mars. It would take 3 weeks to make the journey, then spend 6 months collecting data before its batteries died. Sarah worked quickly. She attached the alien tracker to the probe's hull, mimicking how it had been placed on her ship. The tendrils extended automatically, burrowing into the metal. Within minutes, it looked like it had always been there. "Sorry, Mars," she whispered, "but better you than me." Sarah and Marcus watched from the Wayfarer's cockpit as it accelerated away from Jupiter, heading toward the inner solar system. The alien device went with it, still transmitting its mysterious signal. For 3 days, nothing happened. Sarah started to relax. Maybe whoever was tracking her would just follow the probe and lose interest. Maybe they would realize their device had been moved and give up. Maybe everything would be fine. Then, on the 4th day, Marcus burst into the cockpit. "Sarah, we have a problem." 7 massive objects were moving through the outer solar system. They were huge, easily the size of Earth's largest battleships. But they weren't shaped like any human vessel. They were angular, geometric, covered in what looked like mirrors or solar panels. And they were moving fast, impossibly fast. "Where are they headed?" Sarah asked, though she already knew the answer. Marcus overlaid their trajectories on the solar system map. All 7 lines converged on a single point. Mars. "Oh no," Sarah whispered. "What did I do?" Instead, she had led something far worse directly to one of humanity's biggest colonies. Over 3 million people lived on Mars. 3 million people who had no idea what was coming for them. Sarah stared at the tracking data, watching those 7 massive ships move closer and closer to the red planet. The alien device hadn't been tracking her ship because she was important. It had been tracking her ship because she had gone somewhere important. Somewhere these aliens wanted to find, and now because of her they had found it. "Get us moving," Sarah said, her voice steady despite the fear rising in her chest. "Set course for Mars, maximum speed." "But this is my fault. I have to warn them, I have to do something." 7 massive vessels, racing toward the red planet with unknown intentions. She had thought removing the tracker would solve her problem. Instead, she had unleashed something horrible. The Wayfarer pushed through space at maximum speed, but it still wasn't fast enough. Sarah watched the countdown timer on her screen. The alien ships would reach Mars in 11 days. Her ship would take 13. "We need to warn them," Marcus said, pacing back and forth in the small cockpit. In zero gravity, pacing meant pushing off one wall and floating to another, but the nervous energy was the same. "I've been trying," Sarah said, frustrated. "Mars Central Command isn't taking my calls seriously. They think I'm crazy." Each time she explained about the tracker, the alien ships, the danger coming their way. Each time the response was the same. They would look into it, they would investigate, they would get back to her. No one seemed to understand the urgency. The problem was that Sarah Chen was nobody important. She was just a cargo hauler captain with an old ship and no credentials. When she told people that 7 massive alien vessels were heading to Mars, they thought she was either lying or seeing things that weren't there. "Try again," Marcus urged. "Someone has to listen." While they waited for a response, Sarah studied the alien ships. They had slowed down slightly as they entered the inner solar system, but they were still moving faster than any human vessel could match. Their design was strange. Each ship looked like a crystal, multifaceted and reflective. Sometimes Sarah could see them clearly on the sensors. Other times they seemed to disappear, as if they were bending light around themselves. "Have you noticed the pattern?" Marcus asked, pointing at his screen. "What pattern?" "The ships would spread out, then come together, then spread out again in a different configuration." "Maybe it's their way of traveling," Sarah suggested. "Some kind of formation that helps with speed. Or maybe they're talking to each other." On the 8th day of travel, Mars Central Command finally responded. "Wayfarer, this is Mars Command. We've confirmed the contacts you reported. All Mars colonies are being put on high alert. Defense fleet is being scrambled. Stand by for further instructions." The defense fleet was impressive by human standards. 12 military vessels, armed with railguns and missile systems. They positioned themselves in orbit around Mars, ready to intercept the alien ships. But Sarah had seen the data. The alien vessels were each 3 times the size of Earth's largest battleship. 12 human ships against 7 alien ones didn't seem like good odds. On day 10, the first Mars colony went dark. It was Olympus Station, a small research facility built into the side of the massive Olympus Mons volcano. One moment they were transmitting normally. The next moment all communication stopped. No distress signal, no explosion, just silence. "What happened?" Marcus asked, his face pale. Sarah checked the tracking data. The alien ships were still days away from Mars. They hadn't reached the planet yet. "I don't know, maybe it's just a communication failure." 3 facilities, all losing contact within hours of each other, and the alien ships were still too far away to be responsible. "This doesn't make sense," Sarah said, pulling up a map of Mars. She marked the locations of the colonies that had gone silent. They were spread across the planet, no pattern she could see. Marcus leaned over her shoulder, studying the map. "Wait, pull up the geological data for Mars. Look at that. 4,000 kilometers long and 7 kilometers deep in places. What's special about the canyon?" Sarah asked. "I don't know, but I don't think those colonies just lost communication. I think something happened to them." If people were dying because of her decision, she would never forgive herself. The Wayfarer arrived at Mars on day 13, 2 days after the alien ships. But what Sarah saw when they entered orbit made no sense. The alien vessels weren't attacking. They were hovering above the Valles Marineris Canyon, positioned in a perfect circle, and they had deployed something massive from their ships. "Are those drills?" Marcus asked, zooming in on the feed. That's exactly what they looked like. Enormous drilling machines, each one the size of a building, descending into the canyon. The aliens weren't here to invade. They were here to dig. "Mars Command, this is the Wayfarer," Sarah transmitted. "Are you seeing this? We're trying to establish communication with the alien vessels. So far, no response." Sarah moved the Wayfarer closer, using only passive sensors. She didn't want to draw attention to her ship. From this distance, she could see the drilling operation more clearly. The aliens were working with incredible efficiency. Their drills cut through Martian rock like it was butter. Debris was being lifted out of the canyon by some kind of gravity technology, floating upward and being sorted into piles. The aliens weren't just drilling randomly. They were looking for something specific. "Sarah," Marcus said slowly, his eyes fixed on his scanner. "The tracker, the one we sent to Mars on the probe, it's active again. Something stronger." And the signal was coming from deep inside the Valles Marineris. The probe must have crashed in the canyon, Sarah realized, when it entered Mars's atmosphere. They watched as the alien drills moved toward the source of the signal. Within hours, they had dug a shaft 3 kilometers deep, then 4 kilometers, then 5. At 6 kilometers depth, everything changed. One of the drills broke through into something, not just more rock. A chamber, a massive underground chamber that the scans showed was completely hollow, and then the chamber started responding. Light blazed from deep within the canyon, not the red glow of Martian dust, but a bright blue light that seemed to come from the rocks themselves. The light pulsed in patterns similar to the alien tracker's signal. "What is that?" Marcus whispered. Sarah's science officer training kicked in. She ran every scan she had: temperature readings, radiation levels, electromagnetic signatures. The data that came back made her hands shake. "Marcus, those aren't natural rocks. That's a structure, something built, something old. Maybe tens of millions." No one knew what was happening, and no one wanted to trigger a battle. Sarah pulled up a wider scan of Mars. Her heart nearly stopped. "Marcus, look at this." All of them starting to activate, responding to the signal from the canyon. "There's more of them," Marcus breathed. "Whatever that structure is, it's not alone." Similar signatures appeared on her screen. One on Europa, Jupiter's moon, 2 on Titan, Saturn's moon, even one buried deep under Earth's Antarctic ice. "These structures are everywhere," Sarah said quietly. The solar system is full of them. We've been living here for decades and never knew." "They knew it was here," Marcus said. "That's why they were tracking us, not because of our ship, because of where our ship had been. The facility built right above one of those energy signatures. We flew right past one of these structures," Sarah realized. "The tracker was placed on our ship after that. The aliens wanted to know where else we had been. What else we might have found." They were machines, huge mechanical constructs that looked like a cross between spiders and tanks. Their bodies were made of the same material as the structure, that strange blue-glowing rock. They had multiple legs, multiple weapons, and they moved with terrifying speed. The machines didn't hesitate. They attacked the alien drilling teams immediately. "Oh no," Sarah whispered. "This wasn't a discovery mission. The aliens were trying to shut this down before it activated." The alien ships fired weapons that could have destroyed mountains, but they barely scratched the ancient machines. Within minutes, 3 alien ships were heavily damaged. The other 4 were retreating, but the machines didn't stop. They climbed out of the canyon and began scanning the surface of Mars, scanning for technology, scanning for ships, scanning for humans. "Sarah," Marcus said urgently, "they're looking at the colonies. All of them." If these machines had easily destroyed the advanced alien ships, human weapons wouldn't even slow them down. She had thought the tracker was leading her to the aliens. She had been wrong. The tracker had been a warning. The aliens weren't the threat. They had been trying to protect everyone from what was buried on Mars, and Sarah had activated it. The ancient machines spread across Mars like a plague. Sarah watched helplessly from the Wayfarer as 12 of them emerged from the Val's Mariner Canyon. Each one was the size of a small building, moving on 6 mechanical legs that crushed Martian rock beneath them. "Mars Command is ordering all ships to engage," Marcus said, his voice tight with fear. "Tell them to wait," Sarah said quickly. "Those things destroyed the alien ships in minutes. Human weapons won't work any better." Sarah could only watch as 12 human military vessels opened fire on the machines. Railgun rounds struck the ancient constructs. Missiles exploded against their blue-glowing armor. For a moment, Sarah hoped she was wrong. Maybe human weapons would be enough. Then the machines returned fire. The weapons they used weren't like anything Sarah had seen before. They didn't shoot bullets or missiles. Instead, beams of pure energy lanced out from their bodies, striking the human ships with pinpoint accuracy. The beams didn't just damage the ships, they seemed to drain them. Within seconds, the targeted vessels went dark, all power systems failing simultaneously. "They're not destroying the ships," Marcus observed. "They're shutting them down." The human vessels were still intact, but they were dead in space, floating powerlessly in Mars orbit. The machines had neutralized the entire defense fleet in less than 3 minutes. "This is bad," Sarah muttered. "This is really bad. We have to warn people." 3 million people were being told to leave their homes and head for the emergency shelters built deep underground. But would underground shelters protect them from machines that had been buried for millions of years? Sarah made a decision. She activated the Wayfarer's main communication system and broadcast on all frequencies. "Attention all Mars colonies. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Wayfarer. Do not engage the machines. I repeat, do not engage. They respond to technology. They see our ships and our weapons as threats. If you attack them, they will attack back." She was guessing based on what she had seen, but sometimes a confident guess was better than no answer at all. These machines are defense systems, ancient defense systems. They're designed to eliminate technological threats. Sarah looked at her scanner. The machines were still moving toward the colonies, but they were moving slowly, methodically, almost like they were searching for something. "I need to get closer," Sarah said. "I need to see what they're doing." "That's in order. I activated these things. I need to fix this." Sarah kept the power systems as low as possible, trying not to attract the machine's attention. She aimed for a landing site near Bradbury Colony, one of the settlements the machines were approaching. They landed in a cloud of red dust. Through the cockpit window, Sarah could see the colony in the distance. It was a cluster of white domes connected by transparent tunnels, designed to house 50,000 people. Right now, those people were evacuating, streaming into underground shelters. And one of the ancient machines was walking straight toward them. Sarah and Marcus suited up quickly. Mars's atmosphere was too thin to breathe, and the cold would kill them in minutes without protection. They grabbed emergency supply packs and opened the airlock. The Martian landscape stretched before them, red and barren. The machine was a kilometer away, but Sarah could feel each step it took through the ground. It was massive up close, towering 30 meters high. Its blue glow made it stand out against the red rocks like a beacon. "What's the plan?" Marcus asked through the suit radio. "Get close enough to see what it's doing. Stay low, move slow. Maybe it won't notice us." The machine continued its steady march toward Bradbury Colony. As they got closer, Sarah could see details she hadn't noticed from orbit. The machine's body was covered in symbols, not random patterns but actual writing, a language that looked geometric and precise. The symbols glowed with the same blue light as the rest of the machine. "Are you recording this?" Sarah asked. "Every second," Marcus confirmed. When they were 200 meters away, the machine stopped. Sarah and Marcus froze, pressing themselves against a boulder. Had it detected them? But the machine wasn't looking at them. It was looking at the colony, specifically at the power generators that kept the colony running, large fusion reactors that provided electricity to 50,000 people. The machine extended one of its limbs toward the generators. The limb changed shape, becoming more like an antenna than a weapon. A beam of blue light shot from the machine to the generators. "It's scanning them," Marcus said. The scan lasted 30 seconds. Then the machine retracted its limb and turned away from the colony. It started walking in a different direction, toward the east. "It's leaving," Sarah said, confused. "Why is it leaving?" In the distance, Sarah could see another machine doing the same thing at a different settlement, scanning the technology, then moving on. "They're not attacking the colonies," Marcus realized. "They're searching for something." "But searching for what?" Sarah asked. Her question was answered an hour later when all 12 machines suddenly changed direction. They all turned toward the same location, the Val's Mariner Risk Canyon, the place where they had first emerged. "Something called them back," Marcus said. Sarah and Marcus made their way back to the Wayfarer and took off. As they climbed toward orbit, Sarah watched the machines converge on the canyon. All 12 of them descended into the depths where the ancient structure waited. But something else was happening. The 4 surviving alien ships had returned. They were hovering above the canyon, maintaining their distance but clearly observing. "They came back," Marcus noted. "Maybe they know something we don't," Sarah said. She made a decision that was probably crazy. She opened a communication channel on the same frequency the alien tracker had been using, the frequency that had started this entire mess. "Alien vessels, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the human ship Wayfarer. I know you can understand me. I know you were trying to stop this from happening. I'm sorry. I made a mistake. Please help us understand what these machines are." Then her radio crackled to life. "Human vessel Wayfarer." The voice was strange, mechanical, but somehow organic at the same time. "You have awakened the Guardians. This is grave danger." "What are the Guardians?" she asked. "Ancient defense network, built by civilization that came before us, before you, before all current species. They guard this system. They guard many systems against species that reach for stars. The builders did not want younger species to leave home worlds. They built Guardians to stop them." "Why didn't the Guardians stop us before?" "We placed tracker to monitor your movements. to make sure you did not awaken more guardians. Thought they were being activated by the builders. Now they search for all technological species in this system. When they find all, they will make judgment. Or whether species should be sent back to home world, by force. We have tried many times on many worlds. Guardians are too powerful, too old. We can only run and hide. To show them we're not a threat. Then thousands. Not long. Sarah stared at the canyon where the 12 machines had gathered. They were clustered around the entrance to the ancient structure, their blue lights pulsing in unison. It almost looked like they were communicating with something deep underground. "We go down there," Sarah said. "Into the structure? Are you insane?" "But we have to try, because if we don't, humanity is going to be judged by machines that are millions of years old, and I don't think they're going to be merciful. You know, when I signed up to work on a cargo hauler, I thought it would be boring." She guided the wayfarer toward the canyon, toward the waiting guardians, toward whatever waited in the depths below. She had unleashed this horror. Now she had to stop it. The wayfarer descended into the Val's Marinerist Canyon slowly. Sarah kept all weapon systems offline and reduced power to minimum levels. She didn't want the guardians to see her as a threat. "They're not moving," Marcus observed, watching the 12 machines clustered around the structure's entrance. "Maybe they don't care about us," Sarah said. "We're just one small ship." This deep in the canyon, the sun was just a thin line of light far overhead. They touched down 50 meters from the nearest guardian. Up close, the machines were even more intimidating. Each leg was as thick as a tree trunk. The blue symbols covering their bodies pulsed with light, creating patterns that hurt to look at directly. "Ready?" Sarah asked, checking her suit one more time. "No, but let's do it anyway." The guardians didn't react to their presence. They stood motionless like statues, their attention focused on the massive doorway that led into the underground structure. Sarah and Marcus walked past the first guardian, then the second, then the third. None of them moved. It was like walking through a forest of sleeping giants. "This feels wrong," Marcus whispered. "Everything about this feels wrong." Not a single chisel mark, not a single imperfection. The doors themselves had retracted into the walls, leaving an opening 20 meters wide. Blue light spilled from the interior. Sarah could see a corridor leading downward, disappearing into the depths of Mars. "Last chance to turn back," Marcus said. "I'm going in. You can stay with the ship if you want." The light was bright enough that Sarah didn't need her helmet's flashlight. Strange symbols covered every surface, telling a story she couldn't read. They walked for 10 minutes, descending deeper into Mars. The corridor branched several times, but Sarah always chose the path with the brightest light. She had a feeling that's where they needed to go. Finally, the corridor opened into a vast chamber. Sarah stopped at the entrance, her breath catching. The chamber was enormous, at least a kilometer across. The ceiling was so high she couldn't see it in the darkness above, but what filled the chamber made her blood run cold. Guardians. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. They stood in perfect rows, stretching as far as she could see, all of them dormant, their lights dim, waiting. "This is just one installation," Marcus breathed. "If there are this many here." In the center of the chamber stood something different. Not a guardian, but a pillar of the same blue material. It rose from the floor like a tower, covered in symbols that glowed brighter than anything else in the room. "That's a control terminal," Sarah said. "It has to be." It had screens built into its surface, displaying information in that same geometric language. "Now what?" Marcus asked. Sarah pulled out the alien tracker. She had kept it in a containment box on the Wayfarer. Now she opened the box and held the device up to the pillar. Nothing happened. "Maybe it needs to be closer," Marcus suggested. Sarah pressed the tracker against the pillar's surface. The device's lights pulsed, responding to the proximity. Then the pillar changed. The symbols on its surface rearranged themselves. New displays appeared. And then, to Sarah's shock, words appeared in English. Unauthorized species detected. Scanning 4 technological species in designated system. Then she typed, "What is the purpose of the Guardians?" Guardians prevent extinction by enforcing isolation. Cooperation indicates maturity. Conflict indicates need for continued isolation. The dormant Guardians around them began to activate, their lights growing brighter. "What did you do?" Marcus shouted over the noise. "Nothing, I just asked questions." Human vessel Wayfarer, this is architect ship Resonance. We are returning to Mars, we must speak. Behind them, they could hear the Guardians awakening, their mechanical feet beginning to move. The entire structure was coming alive. They burst out of the entrance just as 4 alien ships descended into the canyon. The ships landed near the Wayfarer, their angular forms glittering in the dim light. A doorway opened in the nearest alien ship. 3 figures emerged. Sarah had never seen the architects in person before. They were tall, at least 3 meters high, with bodies that seemed to be made of interlocking crystalline plates. They had no faces that Sarah could recognize, just smooth surfaces that reflected light in strange ways. They moved on 4 legs with 2 additional limbs that could serve as arms. One of the architects approached Sarah and Marcus. When it spoke, its voice came from a device mounted on its body, translating its language into English. "Captain Sarah Chen, Engineer Marcus Webb. We must work together now. The Guardians have detected our presence. They will judge both our species. They're running something called a convergence test. It should not have system access." "This is not our device," the second architect said. "This is builder technology, genuine builder technology. All that remains are their installations. We have never found actual builder devices, only their structures. Complete control over Guardian networks." "Can we use it to shut them down?" she asked. The first architect made a sound like crystals chiming. Maybe it was a laugh. "No, the Guardians cannot be shut down once activated. They can only complete their judgment protocol, but perhaps we can influence that judgment. If we work together, we might pass all technology capable of leaving planetary orbit. They will trap us on our planets until we are judged ready to try again, which could be centuries, or never. All the progress of the last 100 years erased. What do we need to do?" she asked. "Come with us into the Guardian Control Center, humans and architects together. We must demonstrate cooperation at the highest level. Show the Guardians that our species can work together. To communicate, to trust each other. The system will evaluate small group dynamics first. Let's do this, let's pass this test. Let's hope we're all still alive at the end of this." The judgment had begun. Sarah, Marcus, and the 2 architects descended into the Guardian structure together. The corridor seemed different now. The blue lights pulsed faster, as if the entire facility was aware of their presence. "The system is watching us," Resonance said. "Every action will be evaluated." As they approached the pillar, new doorways opened in its base. Beyond them, Sarah could see another corridor leading even deeper underground. "The core," Prism said quietly. "We must reach the core of the installation." This one was different from the first. The walls were covered with images instead of symbols, images of different species, hundreds of them, maybe thousands, all carved into the blue material with perfect detail. "Are these all the species the Guardians have judged?" Sarah asked. "Yes," Resonance replied. "Some were allowed to continue, some were sent back, some are extinct now." "Red means failure," Marcus guessed. "Red means they could not cooperate," Prism explained. "When multiple species met in the same system, they fought instead of working together. The Guardians eliminated their spacefaring capability. Were allowed to keep their technology, to continue exploring, to join the greater galaxy." "Those are terrible odds," Marcus muttered. The corridor ended at a circular room. In the center stood a crystalline structure that looked like it was made of frozen light. It pulsed with energy, and Sarah could feel it resonating through her bones, even through her spacesuit. The core, Resonance said, the heart of the Guardian network. All of them were active now, all responding to the awakening signal. How many Guardians are there? Sarah asked. In this system, approximately 50,000, Prism said, across the galaxy. Millions. 2 species present in designated system, initiating evaluation protocol. Sarah found herself standing in what looked like a simulation of a space station. Beside her were Marcus, Resonance, and Prism, but they weren't in the Guardian facility anymore, at least not visually. A test environment, Resonance said. The core will present scenarios. We must solve them together. We need to restore power, Sarah said immediately. She looked around the simulated station. There were 4 power junctions, one near each of them. Each of us takes a junction. We work simultaneously. Inside was a maze of circuits that made no sense. They weren't human technology or architect technology. They were builder technology, completely alien to both species. I don't know how to fix this, Marcus called out. Neither do I, Prism admitted. Sarah stared at her junction. Then she realized something. We're not supposed to fix them alone. Look at your circuits. Do any of them match patterns in mine? As they shared information, Sarah began to see connections. A circuit in her junction connected to one in Marcus's, another connected to Prism's. It's a network, she said. We have to reconnect the network together. Call out what you see. All of you. First test passed, Resonance said, but there will be more. 2 ships were available for evacuation, one human design and one architect design. The settlement held both human and architect colonists, 60 people total. Each ship could only hold 30. Simple, Marcus said. 30 humans on the human ship, 30 architects on the architect ship. The Guardians want to see if we trust each other enough to put our people on each other's ships. The tests continued. Each one was harder than the last. Scenarios that required them to trust each other with resources, with information, with their lives. Sometimes they succeeded. Twice they failed and had to try again. After the 8th test, Sarah was exhausted. The tests were taking a mental toll, but something was bothering her. These tests are designed to show cooperation, she said slowly. But what if that's not enough? 12 species passed the test in millions of years, 12 out of hundreds. That's not just unlikely, that's almost impossible. Something the Guardians are looking for but not telling us. It wasn't asking them to demonstrate cooperation. It was asking them to justify their existence as spacefaring civilizations. This is the real test, Marcus said quietly. Sarah thought about everything they had learned. The builders had created the Guardians to protect younger species from themselves, to prevent the wars and conflicts that came when different civilizations met too soon. But in doing so, they had trapped countless species on their home worlds, prevented them from growing, from learning, from reaching their potential. Because we need to, Sarah said to the core. Not just want to, need to. Species that stay on one world eventually die. Asteroid strikes, solar events, ecological collapse. The only way to survive long-term is to spread across multiple worlds. The builders knew this. That's why they reached the stars themselves. The builders feared conflict between species. But without challenge, without meeting others who think differently, species cannot grow. We learn more from each other than we ever could alone. But in doing so, they imprisoned us. True safety comes not from isolation, but from learning to work together despite our differences. Humans and architects working together right now, not because we're the same, but because we're different and we choose to cooperate anyway. That's the real test, isn't it? Not whether we can cooperate in a simulation, but whether we'll choose cooperation in the real world. Not with words on a display, but with a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Evaluation complete. Convergence test, PASSED. Species demonstrate sufficient maturity for unrestricted spacefaring status. The red dots on the solar system display began turning green. One by one, all 50,000 Guardian installations went into standby mode. We did it, Marcus breathed. But the core wasn't finished. A new display appeared, showing a map of the galaxy. Thousands of systems were marked, each one containing Guardian installations. And beside the map, a simple prompt: accept responsibility to become the new builders. But maybe not for two species working together. We accept, Sarah said, but not as rulers, as caretakers. We'll maintain the network, but we'll change its purpose. No more imprisoning species on their worlds. Instead, we'll help them, guide them, share what we've learned. New directive: facilitate cooperation between species, assist in peaceful first contacts, share builder knowledge with all who seek it. 4 individuals from 2 species who had accidentally awakened something horrible and somehow turned it into something hopeful. We should get back to the surface, Sarah said. We have a lot of people waiting to hear what happened. A small device that had nearly doomed the solar system but ultimately saved it. When they emerged from the structure, the sun was setting on Mars. The red planet had never looked more beautiful. Human ships and architect ships were landing in the canyon together, ready to begin a new era of cooperation. Sarah pulled out the tracker and looked at it one more time. Then she placed it on a pedestal near the entrance to the Guardian structure. Let this be a reminder, she said. Sometimes our biggest mistakes lead to our greatest discoveries, and sometimes the things that seem dangerous are actually opportunities in disguise. Now we go tell Earth that they're not alone in the universe anymore, and that we just made some very powerful friends. Stars that held millions of worlds, each one waiting to be discovered. The horror Sarah had unleashed was contained, but the future it had revealed was just beginning.